keep your customer happy, to keep them in the property so the vacancies and the turnovers don't kill you. For us, it's really the same across the board, no matter what asset it is. Besides, self-storage is different, but a good tenant is, in our opinions, we typically look for somebody with no evictions on the records in the last 7 years, no judgments in the last 7 years, no BK, bankruptcies. They got to have gross income times the amount of rent. So if rent's $1,000 a month, they've got to be able to bring in 3,000 in gross income. We have started to pull credit. For a long time. We weren't pulling credit. And then just as long as the rest of their background check comes in fairly clean, people can pass. You can have all these criteria set up and people can pass all this stuff. But at the end of the day, for us, that stuff's really black and white. You have certain thresholds. If they don't meet it, they don't meet it. And then we have a scoring system that we'll put in place to see if a tenant will pass. But even if a tenant passes, at the end of the day, you still look for little things like, how are these guys' text messages? Are they using like complete words, or is it just the very minimal bunch of misspellings? Uh, to us, at least to me, that's just a sign of laziness. Yeah, some people don't know how to spell. I get it, but when every other word is misspelled and you're using all these punctuations and stuff that takes me minutes to decipher what you're trying to say, it's probably not the best tenant for us. And then landlord references is huge as well. Some people are really sticklers on employment. They have to be employed at the same place for the last 3 years. If they weren't, they really dig into employment. We definitely look at employment. We verify employment. But for us, a big thing is landlords getting references from past landlords on what they think of the tenant. And some applicants aren't the most honest when it comes to putting who their landlord was down. Sometimes they'll put friends, family, whatever it is, who obviously will say nothing but the best things for them. But that's really where it comes into digging in. Okay, hey, this tenant passed. Now let's really verify, is this our landlord? We verify the previous address that they lived at. We look up in records who owns that property. We try to tie whoever we think owns that property via tax records and online resources. Try to verify that that's the same person that they put down on their application. So that way we know when we're calling that person that we've somewhat vetted them out, that they are indeed the landlord. So landlords are if as long as you can get a hold of the landlord, a lot of times they're more than happy to tell you everything that you'd want to know about that tenant. Sometimes when the tenant has lived in large apartment complexes, trying to get a hold of a reference from their previous landlord can be tough because the people that are handling it really weren't handling or dealing with that tenant per se while they lived there. They're just looking off of some notes in their system, maybe of what that tenant was like, and maybe they're not deciphering notes the right way. So sometimes when they're coming from bigger complexes, it can be not the most ideal, or it can be tough to get feedback, and sometimes it's not the best feedback. But again, definitely verifying landlord references is huge for us. I would say too, no matter what criteria the tenant you put out there and the tenant can pass all the everything and you move them into the property, it's still a 50-50 shot at the end of the day if that tenant's going to turn out well. You'd like to say it's going to be more, and oftentimes it is, but unless you're going and visiting the actual house that they live in and you're doing on-site visits to see how they're keeping the house, they're taking care of it. Unless you know that, you don't really know what type of tenant they're going to be once they move in. They could have the greatest references from past landlords that they always paid on time. Um, but they get into your property and they're just don't live the cleanest. Not saying we're the cleanliness police by any means, but sometimes that can lead to other issues that go on with maintenance or not taking care of things or not letting us know when there is a maintenance issue so we can go out there and fix it. So you can try to mitigate your risk as much as you can, but just know that once you do get a tenant in there, it's still, you just don't know how things will play out. Oftentimes, oftentimes not though, it works out well. At the end of the day, after they move in, the biggest thing we care about is taking care of our property because again, it goes back to what we chatted about earlier, just caring about your stuff. We care about our property. We want you to care about our property and pay your rent on time. Um, we do have late fees we build in per diems. If you're late, you're late. But at the same time, we do, if you're a good tenant and you're taking care of my property and something comes up and you can't pay rent when it's due, yeah, we're definitely willing to work with you because at the end of the day, that's the biggest thing we care about is just taking care of our property. So what we'll do is we'll do site visits. We'll try to get there twice a year. As of late, this is something that we need to work on is um, as of late, it's been once a year. And some have just slipped underneath the radar, period, and haven't been there for probably a couple of years now. But when we do the site visit, yeah, one, it's to see, yeah, how are you taking care of the property? Just to make sure it's up to our standards. And then two, try to catch some of that deferred maintenance that maybe they haven't called us in about for whatever reason, or maybe they don't even know about it or realize it, or certain things that we see saying, hey, from our experience, we know that we need to do this, 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 or this is going to be an issue. Let's just take care of this now. Um, so it's a good way to get into properties to one, see how they're being taken care of, two, give it a little bit of love, and then see if these are if you want to renew the lease with these tenants, if these are the type of tenants that you want to keep in the property. So it is highly advisable to get in your properties at least once a year. We've in the past, as we grew the portfolio, where again, people were great tenants, never really said much, paid rent on time. We really had no reason to go there. But after whatever it was, 2, 3 years of us not being to a property or two, we'd go there and it would be pretty shocking. Some of the deferred maintenance that was going on to the property that ended up costing us quite a bit more than what it would have if we were more proactive on getting to the properties more on a regular basis. So yeah, definitely always be looking at your properties as much as possible, I would say. To a certain degree, don't be a once a month type person that's just harassing the tenants at that point. But like I said, at bare minimum, the one time a year. Typically, no, we don't let tenants do any sort of renovations to the property, updating, painting, things like that. We have it specifically in our lease that they're not allowed to do so. And the biggest reason is, and again, this is all just from past experience. Um, Giving people the freedom to say, hey, yeah, you guys can do this upgrade or whatever you want to do, you pay for it. Oftentimes that's not the best idea. As with a decent chunk of people out there, you'll want to try to do something for as cheap as possible. And sometimes you think you know what you're doing and you have no clue to what you're doing. Or the person that you're hiring, you think they know what they're doing, but in reality, they have no idea what they're doing. Um, there's been way too many times where that scenario has happened, and then we have gone and looked at whatever upgrade, update that was, and it was just a disaster. And it would have been a lot better off for them to give us money for us to go in and do some of those updates. And really, after a while, um, it's in their best interest to have us do it because we have full-time guys, we do things at scale, we can a lot of times get done stuff cheaper than what they could hire the help out for if they're trying to hire it out, if they're trying to hire it out. And then two, most importantly, at least in my opinion, our work is far superior to a lot of other people out there that they would end up hiring anyways. And again, it goes back to us also caring about that property. So yeah, oftentimes we'll if they want to do something, we'll offer up to do it. Sometimes we won't charge them anything. Like if they've been there a while and they say, hey, I'll pay for paint. I want to paint. Um, Again, if they've been there for a while or whatever other reason there is, sometimes we'll just go in and we'll take care of that for them. Going back to a point I made earlier, for the sole fact to keep your customer happy, to keep them in the property, so the vacancies and the turnovers don't kill you.